Okay, in this video we're going to talk about some keyboard shortcuts, and these are just some shortcuts I want you to learn that will help you to work more efficiently, work smarter in the classroom throughout this year, whether it's class for in the computer lab or just for your research papers, for your other homework. I'm just going to go over a list of keyboard shortcuts. There are many, many more, but these are just some of the most important ones that I've determined that are most helpful that I want you to use this year. And I'm going to switch over each time to use this document over here to illustrate how to use them. Many of them are self-explanatory, but I think if you can see them in use, it will help you out. These first several have to do with navigating the keyboard, the cursor around the screen. I'm going to do the first two at one time. Beginning of line and end of line is home and end. So if I go back here and click in the middle of this line and hit home, the cursor moves to the beginning of the line and end moves to the end of a line. So that can be very helpful. At the same time, we have beginning of document and end of document. Now these two often get confused with home and end, but this involves the control key. So from any page, if I scroll down 3 or 4 pages down and hit control home, it will move automatically back to page 1, the very first letter, and control end will move all the way down to the last letter on the last page. In this case, it's page 20. So those are very, very helpful. Think if you want to, I need to work on my title page, so you click Control Home. Time to work on the reference page, Control End, moves around the document much quicker than scrolling with the mouse. Left and right one word. Normally when we move the cursor, it just goes one letter at a time. But let's say you made a mistake 4 words back. If I hit Control Left, it will skip by a word at a time, and Control Right will do the opposite. So that's very helpful to move very back and forth through in the middle of a line very quickly without having to do just letter by letter, which can be very slow. Undo, probably the most helpful shortcut ever used on a computer. If you accidentally delete 5 paragraphs of your essay, don't panic, hit Control Z and it all comes back. Any mistake you make, if you hit Control Z, it should come back. Undo can be used throughout, not just Word, but other programs as well in Windows. So anytime you delete over something, Control Z. If you did not mean to bold something, Control Z. Anything that you do incorrectly, just hit Control Z and try to undo it. Control A is select all. If I need to change the font of the entire document, I can hit Control A, and then I can, let's say, bold it, change the color. But Control A selects the entire document at one time. Here's a feature that many people do not use, but it is very helpful. Increase and decrease the font size using Control, Shift, and either the greater than or the less than symbol. So let me go back to Control Home using my shortcut key there. I'm going to highlight that entire phrase. I'm going to hit Control, Shift, greater than, and it gets larger. Every time I tap it gets larger. Every time I tap the less than, it's going to get smaller. So very, very helpful to visually see the font size as you're changing it, as opposed to coming up here. It's also much faster. You can see it, even though this does change as I move the mouse over it. Sometimes it's just faster to highlight it and Control Shift a few times and move on. So it's much quicker. That's Control Shift. Let's scroll down here. Control Shift greater than. There's 2 options for finding items in your document. If you hit Control F, it will pull up the navigation window. This is the newer look of Office 2007, 10, and 13. If you type in a word like Oliver, this is Oliver Twist, it will highlight and show you a list of all of the occurrences of Oliver in that document, and it shows 83 matches. You can use that if you're simply finding a simple word. If you need to find anything advanced using wildcards or special symbols, you need to go to Advanced Find. Now, instead of using that option, you can hit Control H. I've got that highlighted right here as another option for find and replace. It actually takes you to the replace, but then you can hit the find there and have the same options. You have the wildcards and the special symbols that we're going to talk about in another video. This would be the more traditional. This is the older looking find and replace. If you're more comfortable with using this find from older versions of Word, by all means use Control H and then hit find and use that as instead. You could even hit Control F and see how that D is underlined. You can hit Alt D and it'll still take you to that shortcut or that tab. The ribbon commands. Now, even though each ribbon, many features are designed to be to click on each of these features up here. Every one of these has a shortcut key assigned to them, and you don't have to memorize what letter the shortcut is. If I hit the alternate key, you can see that each tab on the ribbon lights up with a special shortcut letter. If I pick, let's say N for insert, every feature on that ribbon lights up with a special shortcut feature. So let's say I want to do a chart, so I hit C, and I'm on my insert chart screen. So let me show you this as a shortcut. If you can use this very quickly, if you can memorize these, Alt, N, and C, from down here I can hit Alt, N, C very quickly and have a chart on my screen. So let's say I use text boxes very frequently. We will this year. Insert text box is Alt, N, X for text box, and at the bottom there's another option that says Draw Text Box. So I hit D and I can just immediately start drawing. So let's use that a little bit quicker. Alt, N, X, D, and I can start drawing, and I have a text box. So if you want to use these often, if you use them often and you want a shortcut to them, for example, home, let's say you change the font color, FC. So we're going to do Alt, let's see, what was the home again? Alt H. So Alt H, FC, and we have the font color pop up. So another way you can really get to a feature faster than using the mouse, obviously for features that you don't use very often, it's just fine to go to the ribbon and click on the item. But if you use it often, maybe learn that shortcut key to that, and you can get to that feature very, very quickly. Let's see, a few more down this column here. We have a very helpful feature when doing international letters. So let's say you're typing your Spanish paper and you need some special symbols. Let me go to the end of the document here. Control apostrophe and then add the letter. Now, this is only for the accent letters. I'm going to talk about inyays and question marks in a moment. But if I hit Control now, hold down Control apostrophe together, but then let go of both of those keys and then hit the E. Control apostrophe I, Control apostrophe O. Oops, missed the O key. Control apostrophe U. So you have the accents there. Same for the capital letters. If I need to hit Control, at least I think this works, Control apostrophe and Shift A. I get capital A with an accent on them as well. So very helpful to use those shortcuts for the international symbols. If you need a, let's do the inyays. That is Control Shift tilde. Actually, tilde needs the Shift key anyway, so technically it's Control tilde. But that's the top item on next to your numbers to the left of the number 1. So I'm going to hit Control Shift and then that symbol and then hit an N, and I have an inyay there. Now to do the question mark and exclamation point, basically you hold down the Control, Alternate, and Shift, all 3 letters, and then hit the question mark or the exclamation mark. And you can get your question mark, upside down question mark, and exclamation point. So let me review all those very quickly here. We have Control apostrophe E, we have Control apostrophe O, Control apostrophe I, and so forth. If you need an inyay, it's Control Shift tilde N. I'll give you a little tip that the inyay symbol is actually on this keyboard there. So you'll find that little inyay symbol. That's the key you're hitting, but it does require the Shift key. And then for question marks and exclamation points, you just hit all 3 of those special commands, Control, Alternate, Shift, and then your question mark or your exclamation point. So I'll have a chart I'm going to put on the web page that shows all of those in addition to the accented letters, and you'll see how to get to that later. The select key, very quickly, if I need to, instead of using the mouse, I can hit the Shift key, and as I move the cursor, it will highlight. At the beginning of this video, I selected that entire chapter 1 very quickly. The way I did that is I knew that N moved to the end of a line, so if I hit Shift N, I knew it would select it. Then I could hit my Control Shift greater than to change the font size. So using these in combinations, the N, the Shift, and the Control greater than does make things faster. So Shift N, if I wanted to select, let's say, the from the 5th page to the end, I can hit Control-Shift-End, and it will select all the way to the end of the document, but the top 5 pages are not selected because that was where I started my selection from. Control-D, probably won't use it very often because you have the ribbon up here, but Control-D does pull up the font window, so I do kind of want you to know that. And then page break. Very important feature here. Now, many times I've seen students, when they want to move, let's say they want this chapter 1, the title, to be by itself on the first page. So they will hit enter until it's down to page 2. Well, let me show you what's wrong with that. Okay, I've moved it down to page 2. If I make any changes to the font size, or I add an extra, let's say I add another little title up here, if you look down here, by pushing that down, it's also pushed it down from the top margin of the second page. So changes up here will affect your document down here. So let's hit undo, that very helpful Control-Z, and use instead Control-Enter. Now if I make changes up here by hitting enter, it will not move that cursor down or that text down from the top of the page. So always use Control-Enter when moving text to the next page. You can see, I'm going to turn on my little symbols here. It puts a little page break symbol there so that everything above here gets added, but from here to the bottom it's telling it to jump to the next page. So very helpful feature there, page break. This next column will go a little bit faster because a lot of these you already know and are very obvious what they do just by the command. So I'm going to go through. Bold is Control-B, underline is Control-U, italics is Control-I. Cut, copy, and paste. We'll be doing a lot of moving and cutting and pasting, so please use these keys. Again, these keys work in all programs on Windows, not just Word. So cut is Control-X, copy is Control-C, and paste is Control-V. Left, right, and center, L, R, and E. Again, the same letter except for the C. C was already used for cut. For copy, so they had to use the E. That's why it's Control-E. So if I hit Control-L, that entire document goes to the left, goes to the right, Control-E puts it in the center. So use those very often. This next section has to do with file management. Oops, microphone fell off. The S is Control-Save. The save is Control-S. Please use this often. When you're typing a paper, don't assume that it's going to get to the end and you can hit save before something goes wrong. Just every few paragraphs, just hit Control-S. It's such an easy, fast way just to automatically update your document every few minutes so that you don't have to lose anything. Control-O is open, Control-N is new, Control-P is print. 3 shortcut keys that you may use. And then the last 3 is single, double, and 1.5 space. You will probably use these a lot in research papers. It's the shortcut keys to change the line spacing. Control-2 will double, Control-5 will 1.5, and Control-1 will go back to single space. So 1, 2, and then Control-5 for 1.5 space. Learn those because we will be using a lot of different line spacing. So just some of the shortcut keys. Again, there are more out there, and again in a later video you're going to learn how to make your own macros to do your own custom applications or shortcuts and then assign those to shortcut keys. So you can actually add to this list of things that we haven't even covered today. But please learn to use these commands. I don't expect you to use all these all the time. I don't use all of these all the time, but most of these I do use on a regular basis because it does help you to work smarter in your document, work more efficiently, and get your work done quicker.